Moto community and training enthusiasts. This is the last episode of the conversations with my coach, Coach Robb Beams. His link is in the description. We've gone over adrenal fatigue, calorie intake, sleep, natural ped programs with HGH and testosterone. We've gone over heat. And in this one, we're going over, should you be training under the weather? Is your ego able to handle not performing at your best? It's a very interesting conversation, and we also go over a little bit on panicking. For me, I panicked in the water. For other people who might be doing something that they're not used to, racing for the first time, etc., this information is good, and I hope you guys all listen to it in its entirety. I've got the mad scientist, Coach Robb Beams. I've actually hired him to help me with this Ironman that I'm doing, that I'm actually having some mental issues with, feeling like, man, is this something that I can actually accomplish? But he is helping me out because it's not about instant gratification. It's about a little bit of struggle right now for a long-term gain. And we're going to go over my analytics on my Garmin profile, which is something that his company offers, and it's actually exceptional, because when it comes to data, you need to make sure that you have usable data. You can't just have a 500cc or big bore 450. You have all the power in the world, but if it's not usable power, it doesn't mean shit. So the important thing is to have concise data that you can use and analyze. So thank you, Coach. And for warning, I'm a little bit embarrassed with my first triathlon numbers. So just everyone in the comments, make sure to laugh at me with how I performed. So that'll be it'll be a roast of Johnny Hopper, which some people will love. So, Coach, how are you doing, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing good. I really appreciate you carving out some time, and I want to share this with your subscribers. And I'm going to call you out on something that I vehemently disagree on, and that is, look at how well you did at probably 30% of your capabilities, and how many people you beat that were at 100% of their capabilities. You know,
I beat like 15 people. It was borderline getting last. I think I beat a lot of people that were in my age group. I think I beat 2 people.
Yeah, but that's okay. Excuse me. If you add up how much time you spent with the 3 flats and all that goes with it, it really wasn't a performance based on your physical capabilities. It was more about your ability to overcome adversity. And there's no way to measure that. You and I talked about this off the record. I think when you've got some people out there, like when you look at Hunter Lawrence riding injured, and he's still able to be hyper competitive with some of the fastest guys in the world, what's his 2-week break going to do for him? I'd be really concerned if he can be hyper competitive with jacked up ribs and injuries, as you alluded to in your video, a little bit probably more than they're alluding to. If he can still be shaking up the top 5, he comes back 100% healthy. I don't know that I would be so cocky and arrogant as to what the capabilities are going to look like. And I want to turn the conversation back to yourself. If you were at 100%, or heck, even 92 or 95%, you have absolutely no reason to be embarrassed by your numbers, because A, you finished, B, you never gave up, even through all the setbacks. The numbers are just a byproduct of what you overcame. It wasn't a start to finish with no interruptions like a typical running race would be.
And, you've helped me out a lot, Coach. And, this is coming from a complete average Joe. This is my first triathlon, so it's not, and it wasn't supposed to be, hey, my numbers are the elite, a professional level type guy, because I'm only putting in about 8 to 12 hours a week on stuff where those guys are taking like 40 hours. So number 1, comparison is the theft of joy. And 2, expectations lead to disappointment. And for that, you never compare yourself to another competitor, because you don't know if they are having just one of those in the zone golden days that come once in a lifetime. And B, if you have expectations that are far greater than what actually happens, you're going to leave being disappointed. So as I've gotten older, my goal was just to finish, and I did exactly that. Yeah, was the numbers pretty bad considering what happened? Yeah, but at the end of the day, like, I'm happy with, I was able to accomplish something, and it was honestly just testing for the Ironman so that I could see what I need to work on. And there's definitely stuff that I need to work on, and it was good to know that I needed to work on Swimming a lot.
Yeah, but
Swimming
back the train
primarily.
up just but back the train up just a little bit, Johnny. Remember, and I want to set the context for the listeners. The idea here was you wanted to do a nutritional test. You wanted to do a pacing test. Unfortunately, you got sick the week before, and then you had some technical issues on the bicycle. So, because some people have hit me up and said, why would Johnny do? And I liked it the way that the messages came across. Why would you allow Johnny to do the race knowing that he was sick? Well,
Oh,
we
we
talked
talked
about it.
about it. Yeah, we talked about it
Yeah,
extensively.
we
And
talked about it, and you put it in your video. I didn't want you to do the race, but you had your reasons for doing it. Wanted to figure out the swim, kind of get that, let's crack that egg a little bit, get familiar with it, which I'm all about it. But as I warned you, unfortunately, when your lungs are filled with fluid and you've got all, elevated heart rate, you've got that achy feeling, you're not really getting the test out of it that you wanted to. But you were financially committed. You and your wife are committed to going. It all makes sense. But I just want to make sure people understand you wouldn't just go out there and do it knowing that you're injured, or excuse me, you're under the influence of an illness, pardon me. That's not what you weren't being remiss in that regards. It was
well,
more
no,
the
and
curiosity.
you were straight up saying, Johnny, you shouldn't. No, you should not go. And I told you, I was like, hey, I just want to do the swim deal because I've never swam with 100 people before, and I want to see if I'm gonna panic because I have a feeling I'm gonna panic, and I need to just kind of, as Buddha says, the only way out is through. And so I was like, this is a close swim to the Ironman. Let me see how I react, and prove to myself, just gain a little confidence that if I'm panicking, can I not get drug out of the water? Can I get through it? And that's exactly what I did. So the biggest thing that I'm the
Well,
most proud of is that I did panic, and we'll show it here on the numbers, but I was able to go through it.
but think about this though, just again for the sake of context. Most people don't realize what it feels like when you zip up that wetsuit. That wetsuit is like a human condom. The amount of pressure that puts on your chest. So for anybody who is watching
Sorry,
this,
we're not ready for the.
put your hand on your chest and press down pretty hard. That's how tight a wetsuit is. So all of a sudden you zip that thing up, and your ability to get your lungs to expand, your chest to expand, your belly to expand if you're breathing through your diaphragm, all of a sudden that gets restricted. Then you throw yourself out there with 500, 600 other people. You've got a sight. You've got to navigate. There's not a little black line at the bottom of the pool. There's not a lane line that keeps you in the straight and narrow. So there's a lot more meat on the bone than just saying, hey, you went out there and overcame your fears. The fear began when you zipped up the wetsuit. The fear began when you put your head in the water and didn't have a line to follow. The fear ensued when you got hit in the back of the head, kicked in the face, because it's very crowded. Nobody's very polite in an open water
Yeah,
swim.
I'm not. I'm definitely been a land mammal my entire life, and the thing is, like, my wife and I were talking about it last night. Is that swimming? Because we were watching one of the cool Netflix documentaries of like Breathe the Deep or something about some of
Yeah.
those deep divers and just how fluid they look in the water, and it's literally a dance underwater, and that's what swimming is. It's not literally a
Yeah.
just you could be super strong and you just like buff it through. No, that's not going to make you a better swimmer. It's more of like just perfect technique and balancing, and it's a dance. And I'm a really shitty dancer. However, on a motorcycle, I'm really fluid, and it's like a dance. And the same thing what we're doing, we're seeing Jet now, and the top level guys is they're literally dancing on that motorcycle, and it's beautiful. It's pretty. It's poetry in motion watching them do it. And so me not being a good dancer in water, then getting kicked in the face, trying to have a full-blown fight in the water, my whole body was telling me you need to get out of the water because this is a situation that you don't like. So all my senses were saying, fuck, nope, we're out, we're out, we're out. So I had to just kind of calm down. I started swimming on the outside of everybody, and I just was like, okay, let's just try to breathe. Let's make sure that I'm breathing. If I'm breathing, I'm not drowning. And after about 10 minutes of just focusing on my breathing, my heart rate kind of went down, and I was able to continue. But yeah, that
You
was
bring up
not a
a
pleasant
you bring up
experience.
you bring up a really good point. When you look at Jet, he looks like poetry in motion. Anybody who has worked with a riding coach knows certain body position, elbows hot, where your eyes are looking, squeezing the bike, body position on the bike, the whole 9 yards. Then you watch Jet. He's always, especially with your analysis videos, where he's always in the right position on the bike. But I want the people who are listening and watching, think about this. Jet puts himself on the bike in the right place based on what he's hitting, the impact and the communication that comes through the motorcycle and back to Jet. So think about that middle piece of the puzzle, right? The wheels are hitting something. Jet's riding it like a horse jockey, trying to anticipate. Now think about all the settings, the chassis, the positioning of the forks and the triple clamps, compression, rebound, sag. Where's the rear wheel and the swing arm? All of that's happening at a nanosecond. Poetry in motion is integrating with the physics of the motorcycle. I refer to it as a gyroscope against the momentum and the G-force of what we're hitting. Now go to your triathlon. I'll have people all the time that say, I can't swim because I'm fat. I can't swim because I'm big boned. I can't swim because I've got a lot of muscle. That doesn't really sit well with me, because if you look at if you look and understand the physics of swimming, hydrodynamics, how can an aircraft carrier float if it's made out of steel carrying tons upon tons of airplanes and personnel? So you're telling me that I can take the law of physics and I can make a steel ship float and fly and land airplanes on and off of it, and you're going to argue with me that you can't float in the water? That's you trying to argue with the law of hydrodynamics. That's a different story. And it goes back to the reason why I'm bringing it up in this context is I want to encourage everybody who's watching this, and thank you for, being a part of Johnny's journey here. The integration of strength with flexibility is the foundation of biomechanics. You cannot argue that. Johnny, you've had jacked up shoulders. You have a leg issue, right? That is fundamental lack of
That's kind of why I'm almost thinking about getting a wetsuit. I haven't talked to you about it, but get a wetsuit that doesn't have that
arms.
Sleeveless, because when I was driving home, I literally couldn't lift my left arm. But no, looking at this, Coach, it looks like it took me all of 2 minutes before I started panicking. Like literally right out of the gate. This looks like right here's where I started panicking, and that's like where my pace went off. I was swimming decently, and then instantly. Really,
right, let's set the context for the listeners. Okay, what is your max heart rate on the run from your last time trial? Not the race, but from your last time trial. What was your max heart rate?
Dun, dun, dun. This morning, you mean?
What did you? Yeah, you did your time trial, right?
Yeah. Before this,
right, so
my max.
Go all the way down to the bottom where the metrics are at. Keep going, keep going, keep going. In the dead center, keep going. Okay, second column over. Yeah. So you had a max of 184. Now go back to your swim where you were just at. I'm going to show something.
Ooh, that's not.
And again, for the sake of the listeners and the people that are watching this on YouTube, what I want you to keep in mind is when you submit the human body into a body of water, that's what we call hydrostatic pressure.
Average was 159, but I'm sure 164. Like this is way too high for being in water.
Scroll down to the bottom and you can see what your average and max was. So the left hand. So your average was 159. Your max was 167. That's 20 beats less than the run. That's unheard of. And here's why. Scroll back up to the Google map. And I want everybody to pay attention to this. Whether you ride moto, do triathlons, mountain bike, gravel bike, run, swim, whatever you like to do, think about this. When you submit the human body into a body of water, the hydrostatic pressure will always keep the heart rate low. Well, you are damn near at your running heart rate. So when you say hey, I started to panic, scroll down just a smidge so you can see the red heart rate chart plus the swim chart. This is what's cool about Garmin is if you watch the Google map, you can see where Johnny was in the course, and it correlates with his speed, his heart rate, the whole 9 yards. Or swimming, we refer to it as pace. Now, what's interesting, Johnny, and I don't mean to embarrass you in front of everybody here.
No, like I said, this is an embarrassing swim for sure.
Well, no, no, no. It's not about being embarrassed. I want people to understand the context. When you're looking at the blue pace chart, when you see the interruption, see how it looks like a little mountain and then there's a top and a bottom?
Yeah,
That's you
that was me stopping.
stopping. That's how many times you stopped during the swim. So look at the far left when you started. See how it's a continuous mountain? And
Yeah.
then till you get about the 6 minute mark right there, that's where you stop for the first time at 8 minutes. And then look at how many stops you did thereafter. Now, for the people that are listening going, what the heck, who cares? Well, you got to remember every time you stop and you resume, it takes more energy to resume than it does to keep going. So
Really?
when you're
While swimming?
anything, it takes more energy to get started than it does to keep maintaining it. So like when you're running and you're on struggle bus, what you want to do is you want to focus on leaning forward to make it easier. Remember, we just opened today's conversation talking about biomechanics on moto. We all know that if you sit down, the bike doesn't handle as well as when you're standing up. Well, your quadriceps are the largest consumer of oxygen in the body. So the rougher the track, the higher the heart rate. The faster you go, the rougher the track, the higher the heart rate. The faster you go, the rougher the track, the higher your sweat rate, quicker you burn calories. You see how it starts to domino effect? Now you add, in this case, and this is a perfect illustration, everywhere that blue comes to a stop, because think about it, Johnny, look at my hand. You're now sitting in the water. Your head is up here. Your feet are down here. The body of water is against your belly. Now you got to lay on your belly and you've got to actually create momentum. That takes twice, almost 3 times the amount of energy. People don't realize this in the swim. And I know you're like, Rob, this is a moto channel. Who do we care about swimming? Think about the physics. Think about the impact on the body. It takes 8 times the amount of energy for you to double your speed in the water than it does on land. 8 times the amount of energy. Look at how many stops and starts you did, Johnny. If you were to eyeball that, how many times would you guess you stopped?
Oh
20, 25
God.
times?
Yeah. I stopped so much. Like in practice when I do this swim, I've been able to get this swim done in right around 30 minutes. And here
Yeah.
this was a total of 40. So I
41
was,
minutes.
would the Garmin tell me how many times my moving
No,
time?
go back up to the blue. Go back up to the blue. All you would do is count every time there it stops. So if you look at the 8 minute mark where you stop, so there's one, and then each little brief stop thereafter, you've got 15 to 20 stops. So in regards to and this is where I want everybody who's watching and sticking with us here, think about how much energy it takes for you, let's put it back in moto terms, every time you sit down, you've got to do an air squat and get yourself back up off the seat. So you start looking at it from, and I know I'm geeking out as a physiologist, but when you start looking at the economy of efficiency of economy against biomechanics, when someone doesn't have a fundamental base of strength and they don't have a fundamental, what we refer to as ratios, your strength to flexibility ratio has to be dialed.
And
Let's
Rob,
use
I
moto
wasn't
for,
recovering. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It
no,
looks like I wasn't recovering really with my heart rate at all, even when I was braking. Like I was
and that's
still
because the
staying.
wetsuit, and this is where people don't understand how much a wetsuit puts angst on the human body. So it's very hard for your heart rate to come down. If I've got somebody pressing on my chest, it's difficult for me to get enough of an actual expansion of my chest to be able to refill the lungs with oxygen. This is why when you made a very benign comment saying, hey, look, I panicked in the swim. Well, hell yeah. You get tired on a bike or a run, you can stop. You get tired on a swim, your ass drowns. Now, you did have a wetsuit, which allows for the buoyancy.
Yeah.
But that's what I love about, and I think most of those people that are watching know one of our verticals of business is the endurance, and a large
Yeah, I'd
part of
say
that
that
is
was 87% of my max.
yeah, yeah, and that's absolutely unheard of. You would expect to see those kinds of numbers if you were sprinting in the water. You wouldn't expect to see that for 40 minutes in the water.
Yeah,
Now,
doing 220s.
well, that's what I was going to say. If somebody has any kind of a numbers background, if you're going out there, you just said that the pace ended up being a 220. If you're swimming at a 115 or a 120 and you hold that for the full distance, yes, that would make sense why you're at 84% of maximum, but not in a stop and go. That is not a fitness issue. That is a fear issue. And I want people that ride moto to put that same thing into context. When you're sitting on the starting gate, we all respect the inherent dangers. We don't obsess about them. In fact, that's how many pros do we know that said, hey, I knew I was done racing when I started to worry more about getting hurt than winning the race. And it becomes the demise of somebody's professional racing career. This is different because A, you're not getting paid. B, you went there for this exact purpose, was to face your fear in the water, and the fear was whipping your ass.
Well, Coach, that's honestly why we talked about like why I started this whole journey is because racing motorcycles, when I was on the starting gate, you would do 160 to, you'd be right around 160, but that was just pure adrenaline. And when I was younger, it was like, okay, you learn to use that to your advantage, but now that I'm retired because of certain injuries and everything, I was like, hey, I want to do something that scares me because that's important. And so we talked about this triathlon thing, and I've never been a water person. And so me learning how to swim and then now doing this, has been really challenging.
Absolutely.
And I don't look forward to our swim workouts or anything. And I need to, because of this, I know what I need to change now so that I can be better for the Ironman here in November. Because I ended up swimming almost 300 yards longer than what the actual duration was of the deal. So I know what I can improve on as far as my sighting, and because the Ironman distance is like 2,100 yards. So, that's pretty much the same thing. So I know for certain now that I could at least panic through the swim portion of the Ironman. It won't be enjoyable, but now my goal is how do I have the confidence in the water to the point to where I'm not panicking anymore and it can be more enjoyable.
Well, for the sake of the listeners to this right here, there's an inverse relationship between your head and your hips when you swim. So like if you're swimming, let's say this is your body in the water. I'm going to do it towards the camera, right? If you're swimming, you should be rotating on an axis to breathe. Well, we don't. If you look at it from the side, most people pick their head up to breathe. When your head goes up, your hips drop. It's an inverse relationship. It's the law of hydrodynamics. So the same thing applies here.
Yeah, and I wasn't moving at all. I was trying to stay. I had some bad info. I was trying to stay this way. I wasn't moving at all. And before this, I was told that I need to keep. Honestly, I should have talked to you more about it. But I was told I need to continuously kick. So that's probably why my heart rate was so high, is because I was trying to kick my ass off the entire time. And it was honestly slowing me down because I was kicking wrong. I should have been doing like a 2-beat kick or something with me being sick to take a little bit more of a break. But yeah, no, this was.
So this is so important for our moto fans. So important. Remember I said a few minutes ago that your quadriceps from your knees to your hips are the largest consumer of oxygen. So when you're in the water and you're kicking, you're trying to use the kicking to propel yourself through the water. And I want to make sure people understand with the wetsuit automatically puts the body into the correct horizontal position. So the worst part about swimming is staying horizontal. If the water line is here and your body's at a 40-degree angle, you're just dragging ass all the way through the water, literally. With the wetsuit, it gets you buoyant. So the hydrodynamic drag is already reduced. If you're swimming, let's say you're looking at the camera here, if you're not rotating, right? If my shoulders are plowing through the water, I'm just a barge. If I rotate on my axis, you're much thinner on your side than you are on your belly. So I want everybody to put this into context. You're swimming pretty much on your stomach, so you're barging through, creating more hydrodynamic drag. You're kicking like a bat out of hell, sucking the oxygen out of the bloodstream because the quadriceps consume the largest amount of oxygen out of all muscles in the body.
I didn't know that either.
The front is barging and the back is sucking the oxygen out. What's left in the middle of your body? No oxygen. We're human, so what happens when we're desperate for air? We pick our head up, and what's the law of physics? If the head goes up, the hips go down. And this is, Johnny, you have a little daughter, and this is for all.
And this is why I was stopping all the time. Boom, boom, boom.
That's right. And human nature is going to say, hey, I'm running out of air, so I'm going to pick my head up. I'm going to talk about a very volatile subject, but I think your subscribers are owed this respect. This is why they're teaching the infant swimming to drop and roll onto their back. If you listen to what I just said, the law of hydrodynamics is if I pick my head up, my hips drop. What does a child do when they fall in the water? They panic.
Yeah.
So they kick like a bat out of hell as a natural reaction. They're trying to get their head to the surface. What do? They pick their head up, they kick, and they drown. So the new infant swimming is, if I get you swimming and I get you to press your chest down, that brings your hips up, assuming you're not swimming with a wetsuit. So the opposite applies. If I lay on my back and I press my shoulders, my hips come up, I can float, and an infant can be saved and rescued in the water. They may even be cognizant enough to be able to swim to the edge and get themselves out of the pool, or at least hang on the edge and not drown. As harsh as it is, I have 3 children, as harsh as it is, you, Johnny, swimming is nothing more than an infant trying not to drown in the water. And the law of hydrodynamics and the law of physiology is working against you because you're going to pick your head up to breathe, kick to offset balance. That kicking sucks oxygen. The need for oxygen raises the head. The hips drop. The head goes up. You go down. You stop. And it takes more energy to resume movement and momentum in the water, the bike, motorcycle, running, swimming, surfing, everything. Well, if we don't understand the economy of it, that's why a 42-minute swim when you got out, that was harder than your second moto at, Lakewood when you were racing pro.
Oh yeah, that was harder than the 6-mile run and the bike ride. The swim was.
Yeah. And putting in moto terms, it was a lot easier for you to go 2:30s than it was for you to swim that 45 minutes in the water.
Yes.
Hydrodynamics. Yep, 100%.
And I'm comfortable on a bike. So doing 180 to 200 beats on a bike is comfortable, and
Yep.
This was very uncomfortable.
That's what we call the familiarity principle.
But yeah, sorry, go for it, Coach.
Nope, just when we start looking at trying to get high levels of performance out of amateurs. And for the people that are watching this, if you're 45, 50, 60 years old, I'm talking to you, right? We have a limited amount of time and we want to get the most out of it. I've seen numerous times when we look at people's analytics dashboard is they'll listen, and let's say they hear me on my Coach Robb podcast and they go, okay, I'm going to start using a bicycle or a Concept 2 rower for cross training. Well, if you've never been on a Concept 2 rower, it's going to take you, like you did the video, Johnny, 10,000 hours before you become good at something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're sitting there, Johnny, you've got 10 years, 15 years rowing experience because of your CrossFit background. You and I start training together. You're going to make it look easy. I'm going to be on struggle bus. Well, it's not that I'm not strong. It's not that I'm not flexible. It's not that I'm not an athlete, because that's what the listeners are probably going to tell themselves. It's called the familiarity principle. A perfect example is take the track you ride and ride it backwards. You know the track, you know your motorcycle, it's just different. And same thing applies here. When you start to integrate a new modality, you're not going to be proficient at it, but you're using it for cross training. You're using it to change things up. It's very hot and humid right now. I would encourage more people to train indoors where it's hot, where the heat and humidity is being removed through an AC unit, because that increases the productivity of your strength workout, your cardio workout. We're just like a motor. If we're exposed to heat, we lose power, endurance, strength. Well, wait, you're in the gym trying to improve your strength or your endurance, but you're being undermined by heat and humidity. Go into an environment where it's cold and increase your productivity, reduce the amount of heat exhaustion. You're going to ride better when you get on the motorcycle. But unfortunately, a lot of our listeners will train during the week because they've been told they got to acclimate to the heat. You're acclimated to the heat. If it's the first 3 weeks after winter, sure, you're getting acclimated to the heat. But for Pete's sakes, you're 3-4 months into the summer, there's no such thing as heat acclimatization. It's called heat exhaustion.
Well, and Coach, see, that's what I felt like. Maybe that's a good segue